Today, I want to talk to you about Hansal Mehta's Faraaz, starring Zahan Kapoor, Aditya Rawal, and Juhi Babbar. Hansal Mehta's Shahid and Omerta are strange films, with Muslim protagonists based on lives of real people, one of whom decided to turn away from terrorism and run headlong into socio-legal work, and one who decided to dig his heels into that very terrorism. Both these films are extremely intentionally dry. They do not have the emotional core to rope you into the story because they play out listlessly without rousing crests or debilitating caves. Death in these movies comes swiftly and without noise. People are pushed into life-altering decisions with the same softness as breath. Mehta renounces stakes in a plotline full of them. These films operate beyond the baseline desire to have the audience cheer or jeer. To be clear, Mehta isn't interested in humanizing the terrorist either, because humanizing them would require trying to explain why they behave the way they do. Mehta does not care for the reasons, psychological or otherwise. He's merely disinterested in dehumanizing them. With Faraaz, he tests his will a little because you have two people fighting ideologically with bodies strewn between them. Based on the 2016 terrorist attacks in Dhaka, in a posh cafe that killed 29 people, the film plots itself along the grooves of the good Muslim, bad Muslim sketch. The titular Faraaz, Bangladesh ka Shahzada, born into money, is a shy but seething man played with doe-eyed intensity by debutante and Bombay cinema Shahzada Zahan Kapoor. He wears his conscience on his really long sleeves. He's having dinner with his two friends when the gunmen descend, killing only foreigners and Hindus, leaving alive any Bangladeshi Muslim.
और जो भी अल्लाह की कुर्बत को नहीं समझते, उन्हें खत्म कर दो.
As the movie rumbles to this attack, Mehta frames long takes of Faraaz walking, getting kissed by his mother, a woman of remarkable power and poise, played by Juhi Babbar. And there is something ominous in the way Faraaz's kindness is expressed, especially the shot of him walking into the light. His Islam isn't apparent. This might be because of his class, this might be because of his country, Bangladesh, a Muslim majority nation. Mehta doesn't give us answers, not even clues. Faraaz is, however, forced to brandish his pacifist Islam in front of the terrorists, the bad Muslims, a band of 5 headed by Nibras, played by Aditya Rawal, son of Parish Rawal, who moves so easily, so softly between cunning and kind. In interviews, Hansal Mehta mentioned that is not how he sees these two characters, as protagonists and antagonists. But the moment you graft this really tiring good Muslim versus bad Muslim framework onto two characters, one becomes the protagonist and the other the antagonist. It is delusional to expect it to be otherwise. You cannot make a neutral film about terrorism when so much of it hinges on explaining why violence is bad. And this is where the film loses its reserve, its dignity. There is a whole stretch where Faraaz and Nibras are having an argument, and it's so treaded, so wrought, so familiar, so repeated, so blunt and tiresome. There is something grotesquely self-congratulatory about these little righteous liberal film ideals, which take a serious political issue, treat it with that cavalier dance of dialogue, promising a broader conversation which never really comes. The film should be that conversation, and Faraaz isn't that film. I don't even think it wants to be that film. It merely wants to milk a moment of heroism and retreat into its quietness. And there is something frustrating here in this scene, this desire to sell Islam, this desire to repackage it, reappropriate it as a paragon of peace. But we must look beyond the edges of this exchange in Faraaz, for it is a film that, though derived from this one moment, has a welter of life which it uses to shade a mythical moment, a cinematic moment, into something more rounded, more brimming. The film begins with terrorists getting ready, but there is nothing foreboding or even malevolent about the staging. Think of how the attacks of 26/11 begins, for example. Here, one of them is struggling to get up, one of them can't stop pumping, one of them looks at himself in the mirror, convinced of his beauty. This is all captured in one rattling take by cinematographer Mehta. They eat like they have more days to live for, they talk like children, they want to be treated like adults, but they demand attention like children with power. The power is the gun. This is what Mehta does best. He shuffles you into a world that does not seem threatening, does not demand heroism, though it very much is threatening and it very much demands its hero. Mehta isn't interested in teasing your adrenaline. He isn't interested in pulping your heart. For Mehta's minimal standards, the background score doesn't blare. Only the gunshots do. His film makes most emotional sense in the gestures, in the silences, in the small acts between the bigger acts. But the moment characters speak, either it's the oddly sonorous dialogues or the pathetic accents, the chinks in his narrative armory are barefaced. The scenes when Nibras explains his fierce belief in the Islamic State are written with such dull simplicity. The way the terrorist banter has this forced youth in it. We're told Nibras and Faraaz used to play football together, but their worlds diverged. Why? A more curious writer-filmmaker would try, or at least imply, a reason instead of repeatedly regurgitating the snap of history every few scenes. How did he trip and fall into a bloodletting ideology? Nibras becomes this hazy outline, a collection of gestures, disdain at perfume having alcohol in it, tenderness towards kids, sudden bursts of kindness to baksh or spare lives, sudden grunts of gunfire. Maybe Mehta does not want us to think of Nibras as a character, but a foggy, shifting study in violence. And that makes every appearance of Nibras both unpredictable and unstudied. Soon a monotony descends over these shifting sands because you do not know what the film is going after, what it wants to be, what it wants to say. The police and the various teams, SWAT, Border Patrol, jostle for information. What do these terrorists want? Even we want to know. If all they wanted to do was produce a bloodbath and leave, they could have left. They're not wanting ransom or the release of political prisoners. These young boys with guns enter, pour bullets and stay the night, terrorizing those whom they have allowed to be alive. This is a story so singularly insistent on the present, it forgets that even its characters have a past from which their beliefs emerged, and some even a future. But the thing about the intensely present tense film is that it requires an intensely present tense cinematic language, not one of hand-stretching languor, which is Mehta's go-to grasp. There is a very provocative yet tender moment towards the end where all of them, the terrorists and the terrorized, pray together. Just the men, of course. Suddenly, the good Muslim, bad Muslim tug of war feels futile. That bad Muslims are Muslims too. Their badness does not make them less Muslim. In the same way, one's goodness does not make one more Muslim. This is what I mean when I say the beauty of Mehta's films lurks in the silences, when he refuses his characters the edgeless, straightened certainty of dialogue. Cinematically, its dryness, its distracted wobbling between being dramatic and being subtle, being humorous and being ironic, rings a false note. But there is something else that's unsettling. The mother of one of the characters, a Muslim girl who's dressed in shorts and is regularly called a bitch and is slapped by the terrorists, vehemently opposed to this film. I can see why. The film's existence now provokes a moral question. There might be honesty in telling a story without sensationalizing its roots, but there also might be dishonesty in trying to reverse engineer a story out of an intention. What did you think about Faraaz? Do leave a comment about your thoughts